Well, first, you get to confront all the gremlins that are in your head, or the inner critics that we all have. That I'd been on this path for so long, and the challenge of like, well, you can't quit now. You've already sunk all of this time and energy into this. Besides, what else would you do? This is the only path you know.
Today, we sit down with Rachel Burr, an inspiring coach, author, and former psychologist in training with a deep background in leadership development and talent transformation. Rachel's career journey is anything but ordinary. After spending years on the path to becoming a clinical psychologist, Rachel made a courageous pivot, leaving behind a nearly complete PhD to forge her own path in coaching and executive development. In this episode, Rachel opens up about the twists and turns of her journey, from navigating moments of uncertainty and personal upheaval to building a thriving coaching practice focused on helping others unlock their fullest potential. We'll dive into her new book, Butterfly Goo, which shares the messiness and magic of personal transformation. And Rachel dishes out real, actionable insights for anyone feeling stuck or ready for change. Get ready for a conversation filled with refreshing honesty, humor, and practical wisdom. As always, if you found value from this content, please like and subscribe. All right, Rachel Burr, welcome to Beyond Fulfillment.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks for having me.
Yes, thank you for being here. We're excited to have this conversation. So, Rachel, we were just talking off camera about your journey, and you had quite a fascinating way that you became an entrepreneur. It started by or from you being a recovering psychologist. So, so, so if you would, for everyone, could you just talk about how that happened?
Absolutely. So, my fundamental kind of focus in a lot of things that I do, coaching and beyond, is this idea that we have who we are at our core. And it's important for us to understand that and then to bring that to whatever it is that we want to do in life. Sometimes we accidentally fall on paths that actually aren't aligned with that core, and we end up going down roads that aren't ours to walk. My first experience with that and what launched me into this career of coaching and helping other people get on the right paths, not just get off the wrong ones, but I was on the wrong path. I started down a 10-year journey into becoming a clinical psychologist. I did not become a clinical psychologist. I got about halfway through the PhD program, and I loved everything about psychology. I love human behavior. I love how we think. I love how that works for us, how it doesn't, which integrates into all of my business. What I realized is that about halfway through that program, I was miserable. And I'm like, what is going on? And for me, it was all of it was fascinating, but the destination of where this path was leading me was not someplace I wanted to go. Instead, and I always say this, I honor so much the work that my former colleagues and now psychologists do, because I was working with some folks who were really severely mentally ill. And a lot of their journey is getting back up to functioning and trying to maintain that functioning, which can be very difficult. I realized that my true passion was about stepping in and helping people explore the best of who they can be to really, kind of explode their potential. And it's not that you couldn't do that on the path that I was, it would be more of a make it fit process. And I really wanted to have a clear path and build that path towards something that that was exciting for me. And that I really wanted, that's where I wanted to go. So that was the start of my journey and my origin story for going into coaching. So I'm going to
Okay.
pause for a minute.
Okay, no, that's fascinating. And that's great that you tell it like that too, because I'm sure so many people can relate to that in terms of maybe feeling like we see that all the time when people are not on the right path and it leads to so many other problems. But
Hmm.
so you had this fascination with psychology, you really liked it, enjoyed it, and you're down the path of being a clinical psychologist. And then you realize, wait a minute, I don't want to be on that spectrum of it where I'm just helping people you know, get back to functioning, but I really want to help people live their best life and explode their potential and really use psychology to help people supercharge their results. So you have that realization, you're halfway through the program. I'm sure you spent a bunch of time, a bunch of money, and up to where you were. So then when you had that epiphany, what happens next?
Well, first, you get to confront all the gremlins that are in your head, or what, the inner critics that we all have. That I'd been on this path for so long, and the challenge of like, well, you can't quit now. You've already sunk all of this time and energy into this. Besides, what else would you do? This is the only path you know.
Feeling lost in the noise of social media? Inspo cuts through the clutter, connecting you directly with real insights from real experts and industry leaders. It's a new social network dedicated to knowledge sharing, industry insights, and thought leadership. Get the latest from top minds in your field, or build your own thought leadership portfolio on Inspo. Already trusted by thousands of professionals worldwide, be part of the conversation and download Inspo Experts today on the App Store or visit www.inspo.expert.
So that fear and stuckness gets there. So a lot of times, and I recently wrote a book about this kind of process that I went through to help other people go through theirs. The denial set in really kind of strongly. And denial is an amazing analgesic. We can convince ourselves that this isn't happening, that that's not what I want, la, 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 la. So I had this kind of realization, and then I kind of pushed it away. Or let's say there had been a lot of these little red flags along the way that I just chose to ignore. And finally something happened that I just broke open. I could no longer ignore what was staring me in the face. The problem is I didn't know how to get off the train that I was on. That was the one, kind of the nonstop goal towards becoming a psychologist, an academic, a researcher, whatever it was that you do with that degree. And the problem was there weren't really people around me who could help me figure this out, because on the train, fun train that was heading towards this destination, there were essentially two groups of people. There were the people who were really excited about this journey. I have a great friend who's, a tenured professor at a huge university in the US. She loves it, and it's absolutely the right path for her. There's the other group that's on the train with me that they didn't want to be going where we were going, but they didn't know how to get off either. So at some point, I had to take a leap. It had to be a leap of faith. I didn't know what I was going to do next. I didn't know exactly where that would land me. I had some ideas of building blocks, and that's what I used to start the next point in my journey. But at some point, you do have to leap into the unknown.
Okay. So how did you take the leap then? Like what'd you do?
Well, I quit graduate school. And I was engaged at the time, and so I moved back to the Midwest where I had lived before, and kind of spent some time trying to figure this out. And then, fortunately, I say this along the way that sometimes we have epiphanies and we create change for ourselves. We kind of break the pattern, and sometimes the universe breaks it for us. In my case, I had been engaged and he called it off. And it really forced me to step back, because at that point, not only had I kind of lost the career I thought I was going to have, the vision for my future, but now I lost this part of my future as well. And sometimes things have to break enough to shake us out of that, I don't know, haze, kind of, denial phase. And so when that happened, that's when I really started to take a look at, okay, what is it I really want? And starting to build for myself, how do I get there? Because again, I didn't have a blueprint. I didn't even have someone, I didn't have someone who could help. In fact, I remember this, and this has been a key piece as I've become a coach, that one of the things I looked at was coaching. I thought, this really is aligned with the parts I love about psychology, the parts I love about working with people and helping them step into the best version of themselves. And so I reached out to this woman who was a coach, and I said, could I do an informational interview? I don't really know what this job entails or what that looks like for you. And her response essentially was, well, yes, but you have to pay me. So I made a mental note at that point that because I truly believe we give into the universe, and then, it's not about giving to get, but it opens the doors and it just generates so much positive energy and, impact in the world. And yes, of course, we have jobs, and yes, of course, we have to get paid. But I made the decision right there that I went forward as people came to me and said, hey, I might want to be a coach. I might want to do this. Could you just have a conversation with me? Absolutely. I will do that. I will help you because I never want anybody to feel about, the way I felt in that moment. So, and part of the book, and by the way, it's called Butterfly Goo, The Down and Dirty Truth of Transformation, and my own messy, gooey process in going through this. I also break out a few things in the back. So if people want to play around with transformation, I took my process that I found and stumbled on and kind of created along the way, and I put some exercises and things that you can do so you don't have to start from scratch. And it's like take, tweak, or toss, whatever works for you. So then I, step by step, took my building blocks and I started building a path. And sometimes my path took me to a great place. Sometimes my path, I hit a brick wall. And sometimes it took me to the next big exit ramp that I needed for the next leg of my journey. And the reality is this is not it's not a cookie cutter. My path isn't going to be your path, but there are stages and things to be aware of as you go along the way. Like this could be very circuitous. Some people have this direct path from point A to point B. Great. You should do that then. For the rest of us, we shouldn't be surprised when it doesn't just show up one day and we know exactly where we're going. It's okay. That gooey, messy part is it's essential to our transformation and we get to embrace it. So the book has all the details, but along the way, that's how I discovered that I can take those same building blocks that I used in psychology and I could build something new with them. And that's how I started to build my path to learning, development, leadership, and coaching.
Okay, a lot I want to get into there. One quick question though, what does circuitous mean?
Oh, circuitous. Sorry, I love words. I really do. It makes me a great author. It's like I can almost taste them in my mouth. So yes, excellent question. So circuitous just means it's not a direct line. There's a lot of weaving and back and forth and around, and in my case, a lot of loop-the-loops, kind of figuring out where I want to go. So it's really this messy, kind of non-linear path, and a lot of times you don't know where you're headed, but you got to keep putting one foot in front of the other.
Okay, yeah, love that. So, and let's just go back. So you
Yeah,
make the decision to quit graduate school right in the middle,
yeah.
right? And what was the reaction from like your friends, family, the people closest to you when that happened?
Well, there's a couple. One, my dad, and I really appreciate this because he was a therapist. So it's a little bit kind of family business. And I remember telling him that, you know, I I don't want to tell you this. I'm afraid to tell you this. And I said, I really want to quit graduate school. And the reason I'm afraid to tell you is that this is something we have in common. It's something we love and we talk about it and we, kind of dissect things. And it's a huge connecting piece for me with you. And I will remember forever that he said, well, those are all very good points. And none of them are good reasons for you to stay. So I think some people thought I was probably insane and was really missing the mark, which I've had a number of times in my career. People, they have their filter for their vision of what they want. And so I start to deviate from it. And so they're worried and they try to pull me back to their vision, but that's not my path. Most of the folks who know me and that when I make a decision and they feel the conviction, then they're like, yep, go for it. Well, we trust you to figure this out. Some of my professors, which I loved, which I really appreciated it, they thought it might have been something kind of in the program or who I was working with or all of that. And they're like, if you need a different place or you need a different focus, I'm happy to take you on. Because obviously, as a grad student, you have to be, you're usually a research assistant or teaching assistant, and that helps you pay for school. So folks were saying, we can figure it out. I'll take you into this program. I'll take you into that. And I love that. I loved that they cared enough about me and they believed in me enough that they wanted to essentially pull me onto their path. Because honestly, that's most of what we know. And when we reach out to help people, that's a lot of what we do, a lot of advice giving. So I absolutely appreciated their efforts. And I knew it was the wrong direction for me. So there's kind of a mix, but overall, very supportive.
Okay. And then so you're at this crossroads in your career, you make this decision, you know you don't want to do grad school, but you don't know what you want to do. You're almost kind of lost at the moment. And then
Mm,
your fiance leaves, right?
yeah.
And you can look back and see like that was the right, that
Oh,
worked out now. But at the time, what was that like?
oh, that was brutal. Um, I think especially when we push ourselves into really severe denial, we tend to hold on to the pieces that that we think are certain. And certainty is an illusion at best. But we're deluding ourselves into this is what I need to hold on to. And the problem is that we tend to hold on tighter and tighter. And sometimes we can almost strangle ourselves, the people around us. And when he called that off, I was devastated. I had no idea. I felt like I didn't know where I was going to go. I didn't know who I was. And even though I recognized at the time I wasn't really happy, neither of us were really happy, but it's what I knew. And I felt safe, not happy, but safe. And those two things are very different. People, they can go together, which is great, but they don't always. And sometimes we choose safe over happy. So, like I said, sometimes things have to break enough for us to be willing to step out of it. And I had this moment where, I was going miserable, trying to just survive essentially. And I remember I came home one day and I just like hit the floor. I just, sat there, cried. There was a lot of crying. Um, and I felt this click. And I talk about it in the book that change, a lot of times we focus on like those old combination locks. We focus on the lock springing open and it's like magic. The question is, how does that lock spring open? And the reality is, in those locks, there were these little clicks. Like you'd turn the knob and you'd hit certain places along the way that was part of this combination. Now, hopefully, if you actually have a real lock, you know the combination you're trying to open. I didn't. So, but I heard these little clicks along the way, and I started to understand that those were moments that something small was shifting, leading to something big. And I'm sitting on the floor, and I felt that click. And I realized I thought that if I lost, 'cause I lost my career path, which, by the way, quitting that program was not just quitting school. It was like losing my right arm because it was defining me as a human being. So I lost that part of my future and myself. I lost, just a whole path to my future and what it was even going to look like, not just a career, but everything. And now I'd lost the relationship, 4 months out from a wedding that I was sure was going to be my future. So I sat there and I thought, I've lost everything that I thought if I lost any one of these, I wouldn't be able to live without it, let alone losing all of them. I didn't think, I thought it would kill me. And I had this moment, I'm like, but it didn't kill me. I'm still here. And then I started wondering, I wonder what else won't kill me. What else have I been hiding from? What else have I been doing that I've been keeping small, that I haven't been stepping into my full potential because I've been trying to be safe? And that was yet another click that pushed me forward. And fortunately, in that point in time, I had fabulous friends around me that were willing to help me. I had folks who were, I like to call it part of my village. Like you build your village of the people around you and you bring in the people who are going to support and feed you. And they helped pull me out of that and helped me create a foundation or a place to launch from for my next leg of my journey.
Okay. And then let's talk about that next leg of the journey, the coaching company that you built. Like how did you go about doing that?
So, and also I had to kind of learn or relearn how do you take these building blocks into, say, corporate America or outside of academia. And so I started building, I worked in learning and development, I worked in leadership development, I worked in these corporate roles, which I loved at the time. And I finally landed just my dream job. I loved it. I worked for, a global company. I was doing international programs for leadership and development. I got to work with people all over the world. I love different people and cultures and languages. My husband is French, so I get to spend a lot of time in that. But I felt like so much of what I was doing wasn't really focused on where my strongest talents were, where my passions were. Whenever you're in a job, there's other parts and pieces of it that really aren't using you to your best of your abilities. And honestly, even as an entrepreneur, that's true, right? We've got certain things like operational stuff working on the business that maybe isn't our passion, but that's still in service to what we're doing. And the last year that I was at this company, and it was really hard, again, hard to quit because I love the people I worked with. It was a good company. Two big things happened that broke. And again, they had to break enough because I am an optimist, sometimes persistently so to the point of need to step back and realize things can't be done. But two big things broke. And I realized that the company's vision for leadership development wasn't aligned with who I was and what I wanted to do. And to be honest, the breaking part, I have a huge piece on why those broke in terms of my communication and how I didn't communicate, how I didn't influence all of that. I am not saying it was the company, but it was a big enough break that I finally thought, I can't do this. So I didn't know that I was leaving to start my own company. I knew that I was quitting my job, and I have a habit sometimes of quitting without having something else. Wouldn't recommend that, but I've done that. Over the next few months, I tried to kind of figure out what I was doing, what was my next corporate job. And a friend of mine had a small consulting company, and she's like, "Have you ever thought about consulting?" I'm like, "No, no, no. Instability, don't know, wouldn't want to do that, all of that." Again, playing it safe. So I agreed. She's like, I got this little project, like 10 hours a week, come work with me, just dip your toe in. Okay. I had nothing else going on, so why not? And one of the pieces, again, kind of a big, break, something cracking was I remember I was standing in front of the office building for this huge client that she was working with. And we had somebody on site as the project manager, and I was going to go in and meet them for the first time for my part of the work because we were a team. And I'm talking to my friend outside this door, and she said, well, she's like, essentially, the client doesn't want to work with the project manager anymore, so she's gone. So I need you to walk in there and I need you to, kind of fix this. I'm like, I'm walking into a company I've never been to, people I don't know. Our project manager has essentially been fired, and now it's all on me. Thinking, oh my God, what have I done? So I walk in and I do what I do best. I listened. I asked questions. I tried to understand where the disconnects were. And 30 minutes later, I was like, why have I never done this before? And that was it. There was no turning back. I had to figure out then how to build going forward because I knew this was my path.
Okay. Wow. So chance opportunity from a friend. You didn't really want to do it, but she invited you. Next thing you know, things fall apart on the project. You're put in there to save the day, and then you realize, wow, this is what I'm meant to do. And
Yeah.
then so you went, what happened there? What was the trajectory from there on out?
Then I had to figure out, well, where do I really want to focus? And I think initially when you jump in, and you can tell me if your experience is different, but you know a lot of things that you want to do, and so you start to kind of do them all. doing workshops, facilitation, trainings, a lot of other kinds of work, strategy development, doing market research, which was part of my path along the way. And then you start to hone in on, okay, but what is it that I really want to do? And I had the fortune of, having a really good network of folks and being able to talk to them and them, bringing me into their company to do these different kinds of jobs and work. And I had the luxury over time then because of having enough work to say, okay, what's the work I really want to do? And that's when I started really narrowing my focus into executive coaching, team coaching, and doing that kind of work. So I started really focusing and therefore building my business based on that path. And, once you're not spending all your energy going out in a lot of different directions and you start to focus it in, there's an acceleration because your energy and focus are all on that, not necessarily just one, but a smaller focus of the work you want to do. And that's where I am today. Was really building that. And now I'm doing executive coaching, I'm working with teams, and I love it. And there are a lot of things that I've done for work in the past that while I enjoyed it, they weren't my passion. And I wasn't the best at it. You could find other people, and I have people in my ecosystem to do those other projects. But this now is where I am and where I want to grow, continue to grow both myself and my business.
Okay. All right. And the book Butterfly Goo, just quickly talk about why you wrote it and how it can help people.
So I originally, and again, it's you kind of relive your own process over and over. I really thought I was supposed to write, and anytime you start to tell yourself I'm supposed to do something, just know that's a red flag. Doesn't mean you're not supposed to, but just have a conversation with yourself. So I thought I was supposed to write a business book. I was supposed to write a coaching book. I was whatever. And again, I took myself through, I took writing workshops. I hired coaches. I wrote, I stopped writing. I did all of this stuff. It's not magic. You're putting yourself out there and figuring out what works and what doesn't work. And at one point I had another one of those clicks, and that click was the breaking open. It's like, I don't have to write that book. I'm going to write the book that I am meant to write. And once I did that, it just started pouring out of me. And what I realized was I wanted to take everything I'd learned and been through. I watch so many people, executives and beyond, who feel stuck in what they're doing or where they are, and they don't know how to get unstuck. And like when I was back in graduate school, I didn't have people to help me. They don't have people to help them. There's a lot of people who care about us and they want to give us advice. But again, their advice, it's based on their path and their dreams and their mistakes. And so I wanted to use my own journey, my own, so it's a memoir as one, really making this more accessible to people. Humor is really important to me. Not sure if that's coming through yet, but it is. And getting people to open up and laugh and not coming from a pedestal, not coming from, an academic or a preachy perspective, but saying, you know what, this is my journey, this is my goo, and it's okay. It's supposed to be messy. So you're not doing something wrong, you're not defective because it's gooey. This is what it is. So, come with me. Let me show you what I went through. In terms of the book, there are exercises in the back. If you want to do them, great. If you just want to read this and laugh at me and enjoy it, do that. It's all up to you. You are the author of your own journey. And so my goal with this was really to open up people to the reality that change is hard. And I wanted to help engage them and make it understandable, actionable, and therefore more achievable for themselves. Maybe they're not ready to change today. Maybe they're not ready to explore transformation. Totally up to you. Maybe you will be in a while or down the road. Maybe you are ready today. But just giving somebody a resource in terms of where to start their journey or how to start their journey and to dig into their own path and what they want to build.
Okay. All right. And Rachel, if people want to reach out to you, learn more about your coaching and how they can potentially work with you, what's the best way that people can find you online?
LinkedIn, best way to find me, Rachel Burr. For the book, butterflygoobook.net. It's also on Amazon, etc. So LinkedIn, and butterflygoobook.net.
Okay. And we'll link all that in the show notes for everyone. All right, Rachel, thank you so much for taking the time to be here and sharing all this valuable wisdom from your journey with our audience. We greatly appreciate it.
Thank you, Dave. I really appreciate you having me.